Welcome! This video contains an introduction, an interview so you can gain deeper understanding of the subject from spirit level, and a group frequency calibration so you can start to clear the frequency distortion patterns around this topic. Enjoy! Hi everyone, this is Karen Chong, and I'm here with my co-host Dennis Kelly. I've been receiving a lot of questions on the specifics of how things work on spirit level. Like, what is the spirit body? What is the soul? Can we get rid of our pain body? And how do the distortion patterns work? I've been listening. So today we're going to be talking about the mechanics on spirit level to give you more clarity so you can continue to have momentum forward. After the discussion, we're going to wrap it up with a group frequency calibration to help to begin to clear the distortion patterns around this topic. So let's get started. Dennis?
It's really exciting, Karen, all the correspondence and the feedback and the questions you're getting from the folks that are enjoying your work so much. And so what I'd like to do is just ask some of those questions that they're asking.
Great.
So that you can help share.
Good.
Okay?
That sounds great.
So here's a good one. How do filters / distortions work? And the backside of that is, how come I don't feel pure source all the time? I want to be connected all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so first, we are connected all the time. It's just about whether or not we're aware of that connection. So that's the first important distinction. So I'm kind of answering the question from the back end first. So we are connected all the time. It's just about, like I said, how aware we are of that connection. We are also on a spectrum, okay, daily, of like animal to spirit, all right? And there's some days where we feel really great and we're feeling awesome and we have had enough sleep and, right? And we tend to be more in spirit. So we have a higher resonating order because physically we're more supported, emotionally we're feeling good. So therefore we live more in that place and can respond to things from a higher vibrating order. Make sense?
Okay.
And there are times when, because we're human, we wake up one morning and it's just like a crappy day. You know, it's just like everything's going wrong, right? And the more distortion patterns we have, the harder it is to recover from that. And the more we respond from a lower resonating order, or like the more animal part of ourselves. Make sense? Because you're more conditioned by the distortion patterns at that time. So we're in a spectrum, animal to spirit. And of course, how we are varies by day to day. So I'll just put that out there. With regards to why you don't feel pure sources all the time. So what did I even talk about the spectrum? Like, who cares? The reason I mentioned that spectrum is because the reason you don't feel pure source all the time is it depends how you are and where you are on that spectrum from day to day, right? So some days you feel more connected than others. You just feel better, just the way it is. So it's not about whether you're more or less connected, it's just more whether you're more or less able to be aware of that connection. Obviously on the days where you feel better, emotionally higher in vibration, physically rested, you've eaten well, you know, that whatever it is, that's when you start to feel more expanded, able to connect, feel your connection to pure source more. It's not that you're more connected, it's just that you're more aware of that connection because you're able to be on that higher end of that spectrum and be more aware of it. Does that make sense?
So the bottom line, you're always connected.
You're always connected.
Wow.
It's just about our awareness of our connection.
Very good.
So to answer the first part of that question, which was how do the filters / distortions work? Okay, so if you can imagine this sphere of pure source energy at the very center that I always talk about, I'm going to talk about it a little bit differently than I have in the past. So if you can imagine almost like around you all these layers, and they are of different opaqueness, okay? They're different like thicknesses, different opaqueness. Okay, so they're almost like lenses in front of a camera. Does that make sense? So some of them have colors, some of them are clear, some of them are like have opaqueness to them. So imagine if you're looking through a camera and you have all these lenses in front. When you look through that lens, you're going to see the quote unquote thing that you see at the end is going to be very heavily distorted by those lenses, right? If you can remove those lenses, or we call them filters, or we call them distortions, the clearer you are able to perceive your reality, yourself, your awareness of your connection to pure source. So that's how the distortions, quote unquote, work. They're really literally these layers between our physical body and our spirit body and pure source. So that's how the filters work. So when people ask me, will the thing come back? The frequency that you've just removed come back? No. And, okay, so often in spirit the answer isn't but, it's usually and, because it's usually inclusive, okay? So, and if you have, let's just say for that particular thing, so for you, not you personally, but like for the person I'm working with, scarcity is like the big thing, okay? It's like big in their lineage, big for them personally, that's their thing. That's tough for them, okay? For other people, it's relationship. For other people, it's health, whatever. But if for this person, it's scarcity, okay? They might have 1,000 of these filters, like 1,000 of these layers to clear off.
Whoa.
Does that make sense? Between them and the reality. All different colors, thicknesses, opacity, whatever, right? And for another person, it only may be like 312 layers. Does that make sense? Because they're not as charged when it comes to scarcity. Now, with relationship, they may have, 2003, and this other person who had the problem with scarcity in relationship, they only have 82. Do you see what I'm saying? It just changes according to who we are, the layers, the filters, because it depends on the lineage that we come into, past lives, religious conditioning, all that stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you threw me.
Okay.
So you mentioned the possibility of 1,000 lenses around scarcity.
Yeah.
So when I'm working with you and you talk about releasing
Yeah.
or removing the distortion of scarcity,
Yeah.
are you removing one of 1,000?
It depends. So for some people, depending on how deep they go, so I can't give you, it depends,
Yeah.
right? So some people, they can really, depends on your rule sets, how much fear you have, and how willing you are to let go, and how quickly you are able to do the confirmation of the deletion of the pattern in your waking conscious existence. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. So, okay, I'm gonna get to that. Okay, I know you have a question about it, I can feel it. So my point simply is, in a session when we're working on this, depending on your rule set, you could release like 80 of them, right? Or maybe 12. It really depends on you. Does that make sense? It depends on, like I said, your rule set, your fear, how much you wanna let go, all that sort of stuff. But those, whatever number we released, aren't gonna come back. It's just for you, it's like a deeper set of layers that you have to get to, right? There's just more filters for that particular topic. Now, when I talk about the confirmation of the deletion of the patterns, the reason I say this is so variable is because this is the work that you do after the session ends. So we work together in collaboration during the session. It's me, your higher self, and you, all working together, right? It's not me working on you, we're doing it together. After that ends, that is when your free will kicks in, okay? Because you at that point have a responsibility to yourself, your higher self. Are you going to release these distortion patterns out of the physical, mental, emotional fields? What does that require? It requires vigilance and accountability, where you're watching yourself to see what your patterns are, and then to say, no, that is not me anymore. I confirm and delete that out of the field. I refuse to have that in my field anymore. So by confirm and deleting, you release even more of them on your own. That's the empowerment part. That's why some people move so much faster than the others, because they're like confirm, deleting, they're watching themselves. They're like, no, that's not mine, that is not mine, that is not mine. I let it go, I'm gonna choose something different. Does that make sense
So
to you?
basically, you open the gate.
Yes, I start the acceleration process, right? So it's like
Yep.
begins, and then because there's momentum from this session or the group frequency calibration, everyone discounts the group frequency calibration because they all think, well, I have to have an individual session with Karen for it to work. It's not true. Even the group frequency calibrations, which are extraordinarily powerful because there's so much momentum from the group, you can actually get through more of the distortion patterns possibly, because there's so much momentum from the group, and then you have this momentum that you can carry forward with the confirmed deletions on your own. Okay. So to answer your question, it depends first on how many you have based on the particular topic. Yeah. It depends on all that stuff I mentioned before. It then matters how much of your own confirmation of the deletions are you doing, because you're using that momentum most effectively to delete that out of your physical, mental, emotional fields, which will give you even more momentum on the spirit level. It's a self-perpetuating cycle.
So
I got excited.
So this is a process question. Mm-hmm. So I came to you and scarcity was number one. Mm-hmm. And so you saw this, oh, wow, this is a long list of filters or distortions.
Yeah.
So let's start the process. And you said 1,000. Were you just throwing a number?
I was just throwing a number out there
Okay,
for an
but
example.
but what you're saying is, oops, you're right.
Yeah.
This is a big deal for
Yeah,
you.
for you, yeah.
So you open the gate and
Yeah.
you start the process, and I'm ready to
Yeah.
release scarcity, and I go home and I become very aware, and I confirm delete, and so I come back to you a month later. Can you get a sense of the homework that
Yes.
I've done?
Yes,
Okay, you can.
yeah.
Okay,
It's very apparent, it's instant, yeah.
okay.
Because your entire frequency pattern has changed. It just is.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I basically have changed that picture completely.
Oh, totally. You may not realize it. It's funny. When we first begin, it's ironic and somewhat challenging sometimes at the beginning because you can't tell. You, as a person who's research, you have no idea. You're just like, I don't know, it feels the same. It feels like I'm walking through mud. Things are changing, right? And you kind of can tell. There's part of you that knows. And at some point, we pick up enough momentum, you're like, whoa, something has changed. I'm not the same. Like, I'm like happier, I'm more neutral, I'm more whatever. Like, whatever. I don't get triggered as much anymore. I'm much more solid. Like, people start to get to that point where they feel it. And it can sometimes feel like you're not making any progress because it can be hard to tell. But what I will say is, most people are further along than they think, especially the ones who are doing the work to be accountable and do the confirmation of the deletion patterns. And we'll talk a little bit more in another segment about the logistics around that, because there's going to be something on how do you accelerate and integrate most efficiently. We're going to talk about that in best practices, but I think that's a little bit too much for this particular segment.
Yeah.
But we'll get to it.
But the bottom line is that you're assisting me in empowering me
Yes.
to really, move through this process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why.
So I'm
yeah.
not. I saw you January 1st, and now I'm going to wait till February 1st to do anything because you're going to do all the work.
Right.
That's not the way it works.
Yeah. Well, it's not very efficient if you do it that way.
No, I mean, yeah. So okay. Yeah. I got to think about that a little more.
Okay.
Thank you. So here's kind of a heavy-duty one. It's kind of 3 parts. So
Okay,
I'll
go
just
for it.
give it to you. So this centers around what is the soul, what is the spirit body, and how does it influence the physical body?
Sure. Okay. So this is simply from my perspective. Actually, all these answers are from my perspective. I'm sure people would say something else. Other people would say something else. From my perspective, the soul is a leftover terminology from religion, where we talked about soul, right? Because it's beyond the physical. For me, when I talk about, just for me, when I talk about spirit body, to me, the spirit body and the soul are the same. Okay? So there's no distinction from my perspective between soul and spirit body. They're the same. So you have the spirit body. Let me back up.
Okay.
You have to give you a visual because it's hard to imagine otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay? So here we are. You have the spirit body at arm's length all around you. In the very center is your physical body. Your physical body is conditioned by the frequencies coming through from your spirit body. Okay? So they mirror each other to some degree because the spirit body is conditioning the physical body. The physical body is a mirror of the soul, of the spirit body. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So what happens is, because we have a lot of distortion patterns, we don't always feel our spirit body. We're not very aware of it. Okay, we don't really know. So people who are like, I'm not very intuitive, I don't really feel connected, I don't know what you're talking about. It's not, and they're like, I don't know what you all are talking, right? So what's happening is there's a lot of distortion between the physical body and the spirit body. So there's no speed, there's no relationship, there's a time lag between spirit body and physical body. Does that make sense? There's a time lag because of the distortion patterns around the physical body. Make sense?
Yep.
So the physical body isn't picking up with the conscious mind, the stuff going on the spirit body level, because you have all these distortion patterns between it. Okay? The more distortion patterns we clear, the clearer and faster our intuition becomes, the clearer and faster our knowingness becomes, more opportunities come in, more synchronicities happen, that type of thing, because you've removed the distortion patterns between you, physical you, spirit body you. Make sense? It clears out. We also start to clear our distortion patterns from between spirit body and the pure source frequencies that are all around us infinitely. So both are happening at the same time.
Okay.
All right,
So
back up.
arms out,
Yeah,
spirit body,
Yes, sphere.
all the way around.
Yeah.
Okay. Distortions between physical body and spiritual body.
Yes, and between spirit body and pure source.
And so I've got the spirit body. And so pure source outside the spirit body?
Yes, because-
Surrounding the spirit body?
Yes, infinitely in all directions, because you have individuated.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you talk about removing distortions, it could be between the physical body and this spirit body, or it could be between the spirit body and pure source.
Correct. It depends on what it is and who the person is. Yes.
Okay.
It's not important that you know what it is.
Yeah,
It's irrelevant.
I was going to say.
It doesn't matter. You guys don't need to know. Honestly, it doesn't make a difference to
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
It's just a distortion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, probably shouldn't even ask it, but do you kind of have to clear this spirit, physical distortion first before you can get to that between?
Depends.
Okay, it just
It
does.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, so
Like,
don't,
honestly,
don't,
don't
even
even think about
don't
it.
even think about it.
Yeah, you just have distortion patterns to clear.
Yep.
On what level?
Yep, wherever
Yeah,
they're
and
at.
whatever level, and why I say that is because higher self will dictate for you what order it's going to go in. I mean, I have nothing to do with that. Your higher self is the one controlling the timing of whatever.
Very good. Anything else? Soul, spirit body?
Yeah, so to
Physical
me,
body?
so again, as I mentioned, to me, when I say spirit body, it's what people used to call the soul. So to me, it's the same. There's simply this time lag that happens between knowingness, intuition, when we have a lot of distortion patterns. Once we clear that, that starts to get easier, more open, because what's happening is because the interference between your physical, awake, conscious mind and spirit body lessens. Make sense?
Yep.
Right. There we go.
Yep. Okay. Good.
Unless you have anything else you want to ask. Okay.
So this is maybe we're going to go a little bit deeper here. What does the physical body look like on spirit level? So
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, okay. So again, the answer depends, all right? So it depends how much work you have done or have not done, okay? So what I mean by that is some people come to me and it's just, honestly, it's like this blurry, gray, heavy mass because all I can perceive is all these distortion patterns around them, okay? So there's nothing, it's just like this, like really like fuzzy, gray, heavy, like blue, gray thing around the sphere, basically. It's not good. As people start to do frequency work, what happens is they start becoming brighter, okay? Some people also, by the way, in addition to that heavy blue, gray density blob, they also get very diffuse. So meaning there's not a lot of coalescence or coherence or tightness in their brightness. It's all kind of very diffuse. So it's kind of like dull or diffused or this, does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
This kind of like gray, bluey,
Yeah.
blobby thing, okay? When people do frequency work, it starts to shift, all right? And what happens is that dullness, that gray, blue, blobby thing starts to lift and it starts to come off, and there's more of a coalescence that happens, meaning that remember I told you it sort of looked diffuse?
Yeah.
It starts to tighten up, so the brightness starts to get brighter because from within there's like a tightening or a focusing or a coherence or more coalescing that happens internally. So within that, even if it's still this sort of heavier gray blue blob, it's starting to get brighter from within. Does that make sense? So that's starting to get brighter. So it's starting to, you can see it sort of like through perceive, whatever, it through that gray heavy thing. To me, the more work that person does, that heavy gray blue thing starts to dissolve. And then what happens is, so it starts to, from my perception, there starts to be more clarity around three main points. They kind of are like spheres. In the head, right, like in this area, and so for people listening, I'm talking about like pineal gland crown area, okay, it's a sphere. Okay. Another one near your heart, another one at your groin, okay, so three main spheres. Okay. When we start, those spheres are at different levels of diffuseness, right, even as we're starting to clear off the heavy stuff, let's call it stuff for lack of a better word, and there is more coalescing with internally, like meaning from within the sphere, you start to see more brightness. Even as that gets clearer and clearer and clearer, what happens is those three different spheres are often like diffuse, Okay, they're not defined, they're a little bit messy, but as you start to clarify and raise your frequency vibration, they start to become more clear. And people who've done a lot more work, they actually, you can start to perceive spheres. Some people's spheres are clearer and bright, like they don't all come online at the same time. Like someone's heart sphere might clear first, and then, or might be naturally brighter, and then all of a sudden, bing, there comes the pineal gland ground one, and then all of a sudden the groin one, whatever, you know what I mean? It's not, right? So they all come online at different times. So now those get clarity. Then what happens, since people are gonna wanna know what happens next, is from my perception, once those clarify, there's almost like your spirit body and your physical body start to merge, which looks, or from my perception, can be almost like this brightness and the density start to coalesce in a way that kind of looks like an egg. So there's just more like this brightness that happens that's integral. Does that make sense? So the person starts, it's almost like I'm doing this with my hands as if somebody can see it on a podcast, but they can't. So those of you in podcast land, it's like two hands meeting, okay? So it's like these two bits are meeting because the spirit and the physical are meeting, and it starts to look like a very bright egg, okay? A very bright integrated egg, and you start to see or perceive the three spheres less, but because it's so bright inside the egg. Does that make sense? The egg just gets brighter, 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 so the spheres become less individuated. Does that make sense? Because the spirit and the physical are merging, and then it becomes this clear eggy thing. That's sort of the highest level that I have perceived in people. There is a space beyond that where, well, I'm not going to talk about that right now.
Yeah. So let me just go back a little bit. So before we were talking about the spirit body, and we were talking about removing the distortions, and that's kind of between the physical and the spirit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also between spirit body and pure source.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you started talking about the blob and just this haze and whatever, is that in the physical body, in the spirit body?
Well, first I would say...
Where's that haze that needs to be cleared in the frequency change?
So I would say it doesn't, in a way I don't mean to be rude, but it doesn't matter. It's just there.
Yeah.
So meaning it doesn't, it's so heavy that you can't even perceive spirit, physical body. It's just there around
so it's
the spirit
all
body.
Oneness, kind of between the...
It's not oneness, it's more like just this blob of gray heaviness.
Yeah.
So you can't really perceive the spirit body or the physical body that well.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That was the question.
Yeah.
You can't really...
You can't really tell. It's just this heavy, dense sort of blobby thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so as you start to clear, as you start to release, and you start to, does that happen in the physical body first, or the spirit body, or it just doesn't make any difference? It just
doesn't make difference. It depends on the person.
It depends.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't answer that because it really depends on the person. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not trying to avoid the answer.
I know.
It depends.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Very good. So there was even a second part to that question. The first part of the question was, what does the physical body look like on the spirit level? And then the second part of that was kind of, are we really consciousness?
Yeah.
Are we really?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a very easy answer.
Okay, moving on.
Yes. We are infinite consciousness.
Yeah.
We are infinite, indestructible consciousness, embodied. That is what we are.
Okay. Karen, could you help me? I hear so often when I look at your video or your website, GFC. Exactly what is that?
A GFC is a group frequency calibration, which looks a lot like a guided meditation on a particular topic. And what I'm doing is I'm helping you to remove the distortion patterns of that particular topic. And because you're coming together as a mastermind in a group to connect to pure source even more and to clear the distortion patterns of this particular topic, what happens is a tremendous amount of momentum starts to happen because of the energetic of the entire group, and each individual is able to move faster and ascend higher than they could have on their own. Welcome everyone to the group frequency calibration for Mechanics of Spirit, Part 1. The theme of this GFC will be on facilitating or giving you more momentum around the confirm deletion process. Okay, in terms of confirming and deleting the patterns out of the physical, mental, emotional field. If you've listened or watched this episode, you know what I mean. Okay, so here we go. Becoming aware of your solar plexus, that space between your belly button and the base of your sternum. Yeah. Good. And also becoming aware of your breath as you hold your focus on your solar plexus. Okay? So you're going to hold your attention on, or split your focus into two. This will start to cultivate more of an ability to focus on multiple things at the same time, which will mean that as you're experiencing things, you can also hold the perspective of the observer, okay, with more detachment. So you can observe what is happening around you more easily and more quickly, therefore helping you to confirm, delete the patterns even more quickly. Okay, so keeping your attention in your solar plexus and being aware of your breath at the same time. Now, for some of you, if you need to physically press on the solar plexus as you are breathing to practice, go ahead and do that. If you don't need the pressure, the physical pressure of your hand, then don't use it. Okay? As you deepen your breath, noticing the temperature of the air as it enters your lungs, and the temperature of the air as you exhale. Noticing also the relative humidity. Is it dry, muggy? Pay attention to the texture of the air. Good. And now taking a deep breath in, holding it for a count of 5. And then whenever you're ready and have completed that 5 count, releasing the air slowly out of your lungs and holding your breath out for a count of 5. Nice. And for those of you who have completed that breath, keeping your attention in your solar plexus, breathing normally as the mastermind gels. For those of you who are new, please note that I'm working on you at the group and the subgroup level, and that I'll be making noises on my end. So you'll likely hear me yawn or exhale sharply or sometimes hum. And that's how I remove the distortion patterns. I'm working more and more in silence as I access higher and higher frequencies. So just know if you hear nothing from my end, I'm still working on you. Good. And now that the mastermind has gelled, keeping your attention on the solar plexus, we're going to go ahead and ask ourselves the following question. How can I become even more aware of my connection only to pure source? And as you ask yourself this question, please imagine, sense, feel, or become aware of the space at the very center of your body. And as you become aware of that space, noticing a brilliance at its very center. Brilliance doesn't necessarily mean light. It could be a blackness that is shimmery, a warmth, a tingliness. Whatever shows up for you is wonderful. And this brilliance intensifies as you have your attention on it. And as it intensifies, it expands outwards through all of your cells, through your organs, out through your bones, out through your flesh, and out through the pores of your skin, into the space between your physical body and the outer perimeter of your spirit body, which is a sphere at arm's length all around you. Good. And as you have your attention on the brilliance within the sphere, it intensifies so much that the sphere begins to shake from side to side. Please notice how much or how little movement there is. There is no better than. Just notice. And now please become aware of the space around the sphere. Just as you become aware of this space, I'm working at source level to increase your frequency vibration, which means that it increases your capacity to take in even higher vibrating pure source frequencies. Good. Bringing your attention now to your throat and your solar plexus, which is the space between your belly button and the base of your sternum. This first distortion that we're going to remove is that of the resistance to releasing the distortion patterns. So I realize that sounds odd, since obviously you're listening to this and there are distortion patterns that you wish to release. And it's very easy as humans to become attached to what is known to us, even if it does not serve us. Okay. Think of all the relationships that you'd wish to end, or the bad habits you'd like to get rid of, or things you do that aren't really the best for you, and yet we persist in doing them. So this attachment is very human, even to things that don't necessarily serve us. So releasing this attachment, There's a small subgroup of you that is afraid of the change that comes from the release, because in that is the unknown. You've had it for so long. What will your experience be like without it? Okay, so working on that subgroup as well. Good. Breathing normally. Very good. Bringing your attention now, please, to the lower back half of your skull, and specifically to the two ridges underneath your occiput, which is that bump in the back of your head, that are alongside what is your spine as it comes up into your skull. Yeah. And what we're working on here is giving you more distance or space from your emotional reactions and habituated responses, so you can start to see them more clearly, as opposed to having them be running on automatic. all the time. Nice. Good. Bring your attention to your sternum, please. So this has to do with the discipline and courage to see yourself without judging, but to see yourself clearly. This will help you gain even more observer, perspective, and allow you to do the confirm delete or confirmation of the deletion of the patterns more easily. Now bringing your attention to the upper ribs and to the xiphoid process at the same time. So this is essentially allowing for the confirmation of the deletion of the patterns to release to the deepest layers that it can. Okay? That's the best way I can describe it. So deepening the impact of the confirmation and deletion of the patterns.
Bringing your attention to your xiphoid process and about 3 inches immediately beneath it, 5 to 6 centimeters if you're metric, helping you to reset your pain body and integrate it. Your pain body has a memory, so we don't want you to be doing integration in competition with your pain body that has a memory of you before you were moved to these distortion patterns. It's counterproductive. Good. This brings us to the end of this session. I look forward to working with you on the next GFC. These GFCs help people release distortion patterns. It's my sincere hope that you benefit profoundly from this series, which is why I spend so much of my personal resources creating these as my gift to the world. If a GFC topic resonates with you, often more work that can be provided in this one GFC is needed to really clear or loosen deeply held distortion patterns in areas that are sticky. Because these patterns are like layers of an onion, usually there are multiple layers to individual topics. Depending on how much of a challenge this topic is for you, it may make sense for you to go deeper than what this session allows. If you feel this is the case for you, please visit sphericalluminosity.com for more targeted support.